Welcome back. Time for our GMC Sierra Tweet of the Night. Comes from OptaStats. Paul Skeens made his season debut on May 11th. That would be the fourth latest season debut by date of any player to start in an All-Star game, and the latest by a pitcher. The other three guys, Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams, George Brett. I talked about this earlier during the sportscast. Those are three guys above Paul Skeens. All three of them are in the Hall of Fame. All three of them are really, really good hitters, and Paul Skeens was the only pitcher of that group. So he's the first one, or I should say he's the latest one to have his debut there. But that says a lot when you're in that kind of company. But it also says a lot when you're able to do what he's done and the history he's made, Suzie, in 11 starts and debut in May and still do what he's done in 11 starts and start the All-Star game.
And to put it into perspective, too, May 11th, that seems like, okay, that's 2 months ago. It was just 68 days ago.
Yeah.
That's it. So 68 days ago, he's had 11 starts. He has that 1.90 ERA going to the All-Star break. He just had 11 strikeouts in his last game. He has 89 total. I think he only has like 12 walks. Just purely insane numbers for getting into the majors just 68 days ago. That was something that whenever I saw that number, I was like, wow, what was I doing 68 days ago? I was probably hanging out on here on Nightly Sports Call. However, I have not done what Paul Skeens has done in the last 68 days. I can tell you that much.
In fairness, if you were here 68 days ago, I was probably here with you 68 days ago.
Yes.
So that's worth keeping in mind. But to keep it in more perspective, what, 360, maybe 370 some odd days ago, he was pitching in the College World Series. And now he's getting ready to start in the All-Star game. Like, all of this coming together, just the swiftness as to how this has all come about is what makes this so striking.
It was 364 days from the day that he was drafted that he was told that he was going to be on the National League team for the All-Star game.
Jeez.
So I think today marks 369 days since he was drafted that now he's getting told he's going to start this game. And again, he's only the fifth rookie to ever do this in all of Major League Baseball history, and the fifth Pirates pitcher to start a National League All-Star game, I think, in like the last 50 years. So he's in pretty good company there.
I remember the last rookie to do it. You and I talked about this before, Hideo Nomo in 1995. And Hideo Nomo was the reason why I thought this was plausible for Paul Skeens to be a starter, because I remember Hideo Nomo. Now, bear in mind, Nomo was 26 his rookie season. He wasn't 22 like Paul Skeens. But the same things applied. He was a rookie, but he was still that kind of guy who generated that kind of buzz and was just that good. He goes out, he struck out 3 of the first 6 batters he faced in an All-Star game, and he faced the minimum that day. So it was definitely worth the eyeballs on the screen that day. 412-575-2600 is the number. Give us a call. We have Terry in Gibsonia. Terry, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
It looks like it's likely that the Pirates will be 500 at the All-Star break. Do you think that they will actually spend some money here and bolster some hitters and bring on some guys?
It shouldn't take being 500 at the All-Star break to bring that about. They should be looking into that, even if they're not 500 at the All-Star break. I don't think that's the qualifier. I think they should be looking at it one way or another, Suzie. This is something you and I have been talking about for, what, 68 days plus, to coin the reference? We've been talking about this for a while, because I'm not looking at their record. I'm looking at the number next to their record. How many games back are they in the wild card race? They entered today, what? Between, I think it was 2.5 or 3 games back. That's the number I'm looking at. I'm not looking at their record. I'm looking at if they're still mathematically eligible to make the postseason. That should be the reason why they're trying to get some kind of resources added to this team. Don't focus on the spend money aspect. Focus on the get players aspect. Because sometimes you don't need to spend money to do that if you trade creatively enough and make it work. Just get the guys. Doesn't really matter how they do it. I don't really care about that at this point.
The only thing that makes me a little bit weary about the Pirates making any moves at this point is I can remember a month ago when Bob Nutting came out and told the media, hey, yeah, I'm going to spend some money, but I have to look at this plan long term. And whenever I make these moves, I'd like to make them sooner rather than later to kind of generate some buzz and, you know, get closer, not have to be so many games back going into the All-Star break. Again, it wasn't about being over 500. It was about how many games back are we from being in that third wild card spot or higher, right? So But Bob Nutting hasn't lived up to what he said about a month ago, right? Like, we're still facing those same problems with the Pirates lineup that we've been seeing. And I know I sound like a broken record, but it's that consistency. Even tonight, 6 hits, yeah, generated 4 runs, but
right.
that might not generate 4 runs against a better team. You're doing that against the Chicago White Sox, who are last in all of Major League Baseball. They only have 27 wins on the season. I would hope that they could beat the Chicago White Sox. So again, Bob Nutting kind of needs to put his money where his mouth is at this point and live up to what he kind of promised people about a month ago in that presser with the media.
And I think he might have actually handicapped his own front office, because when you're talking about the preference of time when you want to do things, that becomes leverage for the team that you're trying to deal with. That makes it more complicated, because now you've put yourself in a position of urgency, and if you're in a position of urgency, the other team can exploit that. That's why when I hear all this different talk about what they should do as far as trades and doing them immediately, I keep reminding people, you're not going to have a lot of leverage if you're trying to do this too early in the time frame. When you get post All-Star break, and some other teams are getting desperate not only to find guys, but some teams are desperate to get rid of guys, that's when the leverage starts to shift back in your favor. You can't really try to pin yourself or paint yourself into a corner trying to do something in this time frame or on this metric, because that's when you end up making the move that you don't want to make.
Yeah, no, and I agree. But again, it goes back to what Nutting told everybody. Should we make a move sooner rather than later? And he was thinking of the longevity of the move for the franchise as a whole. However, other than those statements, there have been no other stirs, unless I've missed them, of potential trade prospects. And you and I have went back and forth about how, Rowdy Tellez would have been a prime prospect to trade before the deadline, right? That comes July 30th. However, Rowdy Tellez has done decently well over the last month. So
I was going to say, I don't think they can move him now
because
he's actually hitting. Yeah.
Exactly. You can't move him. Is there still a case for Jack Suwinski, who is starting to, gear a little bit into his power? So maybe playing the long game with some of the players that he has is going to pan out. However, if he's going to make those moves, I think a little bit the rumor mill needs to start going to really get these Pirates fans to believe.
I honestly believe that once we get a couple days removed from the All-Star break and we get into that following weekend, a week from now, I think you'll start hearing those wheels starting to turn, because there are too many teams that are still mathematically in the playoff race.
Yes.
That probably have something to look for or something to gain, and that's when you'll probably start to hear those wheels turn as far as the trade rumor mill is concerned. We got to take another break. We will have a couple more, maybe we'll have another couple more calls or tweets before we wrap up. Stick around. Former Mars Fighting Planet, former West Virginia Mountaineer entering the draft. ESPN's projecting him as the number 1 overall pick. We'll hear from him coming up tonight at 11 as well. But before we go, I want to get to another phone call here. We got a couple phone calls about Paul Skeens. We got Jim and Butler. Jim, you're on the Nightly Sports Call. You there, Jim?
Quick, maybe.
All right, let's jump over to Jerry in Franklin. Jerry, you're on the Nightly Sports Call. We lost Jerry too. Okay, let's actually we had a good tweet here to a point that we were talking about earlier, Susie. We were talking about this series with the White Sox, and George on Twitter says, sweeping the White Sox and getting back to 500 at the break would be huge for this team. I know we had a call earlier about that maybe dictating what this team does in the trade market, but I think it's a big thing as far as this team just getting itself back to at least some kind of even footing that they can actually start with after the All-Star break. Getting to 500, I know for some people it's an arbitrary number, but for this team, as much as they've been trying to scratch and claw and get themselves back in that area, it feels like more of, I don't want to call it a moral victory, but maybe a good mental hurdle for them to clear.
Yeah, I think even just going into the All-Star break at 500 for any team is okay. We can go up from here, right? We can come back from this All-Star break. We can have everybody rested. They can reevaluate where Jared Jones is at, where Bailey Falter's at. They can kind of see what they can do with their starting rotation and make a plan from there. So I think that would give the team as a whole a little bit of a peace of mind. And then also maybe they can ride off some of the juice from Paul Skeens starting for the National League in the All-Star game as well. You know, I don't know, maybe that will hype them all up because today they were all really excited for their own teammates. So I think that little bit of rest going into the All-Star break with a 500 record and then kind of reevaluating that starting rotation staff and where everybody's at will be the steps to take after the All-Star break.
It gives them a chance really to kind of reassess the pitching staff because you got Marco Gonzalez. He went 5 innings tonight. He gave up only a run. But at the same time, you know, even though it was a short outing, he gave up a run. The bullpen came in and did the rest of the work. But there's at least some stability that comes to your rotation. Because remember, he had been out for almost, had been 3 months with that forearm issue. He never really got out of the gate to start this season. So you get him back, you start to stabilize things a bit. You get a good outing out of Quinn Priester the last time he was out with that bullpen game that they had. You still have Luis Ortiz, and that's with Jarrett Jones and Bailey Falter on IL. So you could at least have some kind of stability with your pitching. You get David Bednar back, which I think is a positive thing. So at the very least, you can get a group of guys that's healthy and maybe start to get some consistency there.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though. The best part of the Pirates season so far has been their starting pitching, right? Maybe not the bullpen, maybe not their hitting, but the starting pitching has been what has been solid for this team all season long. So whenever Jarrett Jones and Bailey Falter hit the IL, it seems to present some problems because not everybody is back and reinstated to the Pirates roster. However, now everybody's coming back, and the Pirates actually have a good problem. They have that depth on their pitching staff. Not only do they have a number of people that have proved that they can start at this level, but now maybe they have some people to take up bulk innings in the bullpen, which they haven't had all season long, unless it's from somebody like Luis Ortiz. So I think it's a good problem to have for the Pirates heading out of that All-Star break.
I was going to say the same exact thing. It feels like a good problem to have. Plus, when you have that, you know, particular foundation to build off of and move toward, or I should say move forward, I think it's a good thing to have. So, and I'm going to agree with George wholeheartedly. If they can get a series sweep against Chicago, get to the break at 500, really build off that, you know, at least remotely different, or I should say relative health that they have, and move from there, I think it puts them in a pretty good spot. We are out of time. Suzie Cool, as always, good to talk to you. Always love talking baseball with you. For Suzie Cool, for our producer Jeremiah Miller, and our team here at KDKA, I'm Josh Taylor saying thanks for watching, thanks for your calls, thanks for your tweets. It's you guys that make this show great, and we're back here tomorrow night. We'll see you then.